After looking at how commitment comes about and the commitment formula, now we're turning our attention to one of the most central tools of lateral leadership, the commitment game board. The board exists of two axes. One is about the trust of the stakeholders in the lateral leader, and the other one is how much are the stakeholders convinced that the venture makes sense. You see that there are negative and positive numbers, because it can also be distrust or the certainty that the venture does not make sense. And in the extreme forms, we could name, for example, trusting blindly in the lateral leader. Or here we have something like sharp-eyed. So if Gunther Fürstberger is suggesting a project, I'm against it because he killed my last project. Or here we have something like missionary. I'm so convinced that maybe I'm not even thinking. I just go in a fanatic way in this direction. And here we have something like refusing. And this can be an active refusion or maybe also a passive refusion. That's also a cultural question. For example, in the Netherlands, usually I hear very clearly if somebody is not of my opinion. While if I go a little bit more east, then it could easily be that people say yes, but they actually mean no. And basically, if we now look at the different fields here, then somebody of our stakeholders whom we would place here in the commitment board, we would call this person a commitment partner. Because he's convinced that the venture makes sense and he trusts me. Somebody on the other side, a commitment opponent. These two have the advantage that they at least know what they want. It becomes a little bit more schizophrenic here. Because this person, for example, is convinced about the venture but does not trust me. So we could call that person an adaptive player or something like a partnership of convenience. And here we have something like a benevolent skeptic. Because he trusts me, but he does not believe in the cause. So maybe he would be saying, well, I suggest Gunther, have another thought about this. This might not be the right timing for that project now. So what we're getting here is a first distribution. By the way, we should also put ourselves as a lateral leader into the board, because it's not always given that we are positioned at the right upper corner. Because as somebody once told me, I'm not the right person for that. There are much more skillful people like me. Or I have to do this because I got this job from my boss, but I'm not convinced about that. So it could easily be that I see myself here or here, for example. And if you look at the whole field, then we see something like a balance. For example, if a lot of people are on this side of the diagonal axis, then it tilts in that direction. And that it means it might be very difficult to start that project. But this can also be totally normal, because if we talk, for example, about cost saving, many people would not be convinced. Nevertheless, it can make sense to go in that direction. So what we get in a summary here is a first impression about how the field of the lateral project looks like, and now we can define the strategies. But at this we will look in the next video.